But talking about
Half-Life.
Half-Life Alyx.
Yes.
Not Alex Jones.
We had 3 video drops.
3 new trailers.
3 pretty short, but still.
Yeah, they
each
told you
from
everything
Jera.
you needed to know, right?
You had
Yeah.
some horror stuff. You had some cool physics stuff.
Like the third video was just a straight
Oh,
up shootout.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like the way that they had, you were sneaking around fighting head crab people.
Yeah.
And then you had the video where you could see like massive combine ships and you could see like some of the world. But I tell you, some of the scary stuff from like sneaking around, like taking out head crabs, that kind of made me worry a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's going to be too
I'm going to
horror.
shit my pants in VR.
When that first trailer came out and it was like in the train line, the video starts, there's like hardly any music and you just hear, I was like, oh my god. I can just imagine that I would be doing those sounds while
probably
trying to
will.
sneak around.
I was going to say, like, Half-Life 2 wasn't a not scary game. Like, it had
Ravenholm
tense
was
moments.
scary,
yeah.
dude.
It's atmospheric, let's say.
Yeah.
And Half-Life Alyx looks to be picking that up
Definitely.
immediately.
I will say, okay, I've played some scary VR games.
You made me play Resident Evil 7. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I nearly fell over.
I don't get scared at films, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but I do get scared at games. It's the only thing with Half-Life Alyx is I do worry there's going to be sections of that game where I'm going to be like struggling to do it. There's a part in that video where a head crab jumps at the person, they turn around and shoot it like midair.
Yeah.
And I was
Oh,
just...
the end of the first gameplay video is them being, like, attacked by...
On either side, yeah.
Yeah, on either side, and they're, like, kind of turning around really quickly, trying to...
I did like how
Because, of course, you have to manually reload, you're probably dropping clips, and you're like, oh,
Although how
it's
cool,
jammed.
how cool did all of that shit look though?
Most of it looked very cool.
Like I don't know about you guys, but I was watching that stuff and I was like, man, this is fucking next gen. Like obviously because it's not playing a game, it's living the game because you are doing
yeah.
physical movements. But just in terms of all of the physics and even to the point where they are thinking about how you are interacting with the environment. So never mind like graphical fidelity, just the way that they're thinking of like, oh, how do we lay out all of this stuff?
Yeah.
How do you interact with, like you mentioned with the gun, to augment your gun, you put it in to this contraption and then a contextual menu gets projected and you look at it and you select stuff rather than
it's all
like a
very
menu
cool,
popping up.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
Stuff like that's like really fucking
And this
cool.
is like one of the things you got to credit Valve for is, for as much as they kind of pioneered a lot of the early VR tech and software,
Yeah.
one thing they have done in that field, and they've done in other fields in the past, is they've been happy to sit back and observe and say, we've got to wait until we know what this space needs and what people want in this space before we make something. And one thing that has been continued to be illustrated by successful pieces of VR software over the years. What was the game that the guys made? It was like a shooter that came out a few months ago.
Boneworks.
Yes.
Yeah, Boneworks.
Yeah.
And that's a great example of it. It's like, okay, we're now at a point with VR where we're starting to acknowledge that what's successful about VR is immersion, and how you succeed in creating immersion is having as many interactive elements as possible and creating as many like pieces of the world that are kind of coherent to what we imagine they should be as possible. And like what Half-Life Alyx is doing is creating those planks of wood. They're not there to serve a purpose. That's not a hidden loading screen.
Yeah.
That's Valve saying, if we can give you an interaction within the environment every, I don't know what the metric is, 10 seconds, 15 seconds,
Yeah.
30 seconds, that replaces you in that world regardless of anything else that's happening, then you'll constantly feel that you're a part of it, and the atmosphere will be sold a lot better and so on and so forth. But
Sorry, yeah.
rather than feeling like the true next-gen game for me when I was watching it, I came away from that thinking, that just happens to be the most expensive VR game I've ever seen. Not necessarily the most
Or
advanced.
budget-wise.
Budget-wise.
Yeah.
And probably development time, and maybe even development skill. Like, this is the highest skilled, biggest budgeted team that's made a VR game ever.
The reason I agree with you it's not next gen for VR is because a lot of the issues are still going to persist. So teleportation.
Teleportation in the first and third, but like real-time movement in the second or something like that.
And they've got the system that a lot of games use where you can effectively pull things towards you so you don't have to physically bend
Although
down.
one thing I do like is you flick it towards you and you catch it, which
Yeah.
again is such a smart way of tweaking that formula.
Yeah.
Rather than like saying click, hold, and it teleports to your hand.
Yeah.
You almost have to hold, flick
flick
it
up.
up, and catch it again.
One thing you do end up doing, and you do this with all these sorts of like first-person shooters, is you start off by standing in the middle of your room, right? Let's say you've got room scale, and you'll be moving around, walking around. By an hour in, to go backwards, you just point your teleporter thing behind you and just teleport back.
I mean, there are hints of that in the first gameplay video where it's like every now and then, apart from until the very final sequence when you're in the train carriage, there were shootouts that looked like they were about to become a little bit tense.
Yeah. Right.
And then they teleported further away and faster than you'd be able to move. Just enough that I thought, you just created an amount of space that you wouldn't be able to in a first-person shooter.
Yes.
I feel that Valve was smart enough to structure their maps in such a way to discourage teleportation spam. In that last video, there was still some teleportation going on. And some of that teleportation was specifically tied to like, I'm getting overwhelmed here, I need to recontextualize my fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's why I mean, it seems like they're working that into the mechanic of it. They're making these firefights, especially that last one, man. I was watching that firefight, I was so tense that whole time. Because I was like, this is mad. It's so like, it's a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical, but the stakes seem a lot higher for whatever reason. You're picking shit up, putting it in the front of your gun and fucking exploding them. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I feel that they're bringing into it to say like, teleportation is just one tool in your belt of many.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And I think that's how you get around the spam issue.
The way I feel most people end up playing VR is sat down, using their arms. So they're not standing up in the middle.
Yeah.
They're just, and if that game works in that way, I think it'll be fine.
It does.
No, but I mean works as in when you're playing it, if it feels fine.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And you listen, even on your
Yeah.
spinny chair, right?
Yeah.
If you can spin around and this is why they've got the pull stuff towards you, flick it. It's because they don't want to make it inaccessible to people that don't have the space to do room scale. So that's fine. Like you can do it. And the teleportation, exactly the same thing. They don't want to force you to have to walk around.
You've raised a very interesting point there. With that's almost like the one thing that can rub up against that sense of immersion is, does the game, just by the pure nature of the mechanics that they've had to work into it to allow you to move and feel like you can kind of interact with the environment, work against it? And the example I thought of for that was in that third gameplay clip. There's a point where they're kind of getting flanked from their right. They're hiding behind a car, and the way they stop the bullets is they open the car door.
That was cool.
That was wicked, yeah.
But the second you say to someone who's 20 hours into the game and is extremely familiar with the mechanics and the controls, actually, like, that's something that someone has done because they're recording a demo.
Yeah, sure.
Does the video game version of that in the final thing become,
Makes
well, I'll
sense.
teleport underneath them because then they won't be able to shoot me?
Right, yeah.
Behind them, so they have to turn around.
That's where the game like becomes more of a game and the immersion gets diminished, because does the player in reality make that same choice?
Yes. I feel like if you stand in the middle of your room and you commit yourself to like, I'm playing this game for 20 hours, I think you'll have an incredible time.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose successful is how do people react to it being in VR, a fully fledged Half-Life game in VR.
And with that, please have yourselves a classy time.
See ya.
See ya.